Okay.
Hey Ryan, how are you?
Hey Jake, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we're talking a little bit about your adaptive challenge. Could you tell me a little bit about what that is?
So a little bit about my adaptive challenge. It's kind of like the culture that's here with the St. Ambrose football team. We seem to have where our head coach wants to do his own thing and doesn't want to take our ideas. And he's kind of doing stuff that he's done from like 10 years ago.
Sure.
And so kind of like the adaptive problem is we're not adapting to the present, and so we're still going to the past. So that's a little bit about my adaptive challenge.
Sure. So how does the record of the past that the coach has experienced compare to what you are experiencing right now?
So the record in the past years, he was a 8-9 win team. And this year, my first year being here, we had a 4-win team. And for me personally, being from another university and seeing the things we did there and seeing the things we did here, I think it's a lot. We're going back decades instead of going up. And with me saying that is our playbooks are pretty ancient. We go over the same plays we did 10 years ago. A little bit, and this is me just being me, the jerseys, the facilities, whack, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I also think the way that we treat the kids, or not kids, I call them young men, the way we treat the young men, we treat them like babies instead of like 18 and 19-year-old, 20-year-old men they are.
Sure. So let's break those things down a little bit. So you say that the facilities, jerseys are whack. What do you mean by that?
So a little bit by whack, well, we don't have locker rooms.
Oh,
That's one thing for sure.
really?
And the locker room that we kind of have is actually in this hall right now.
Oh, man.
And it's literally just coat hangers that they can put their jerseys and stuff. No one does that. As far as jerseys, those jerseys probably were worn 10 years ago.
My goodness.
With only having 2 jersey combos, you're not really getting any flash.
Sure.
And what high school kids now, what they want nowadays is the flash. They want to look cool. They don't want to be all retro like they are now.
Sure.
So in my personal opinion, I think that one challenge that we have is we need to move forwards instead of staying backwards.
Sure. So we'll come back to that in a minute if you don't mind. So the next part you mentioned was the kind of the way you treat the individuals, the young men as you call them. You say that you feel they're treated as babies and not as the young men that they are. So how have you seen? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So one thing that I've noticed, and I think our head coach is a great man. I think what he does for the university is a good thing. But one of the things that I've seen that's a downfall is he likes to call our athletes kids. And so I've talked to some of our young men and just like meetings and stuff, and they're like, I don't like that we're called kids. I don't like that we're called babies. Like, I want to be, like, talk to me like I'm a grown man.
Sure.
And so I think that's kind of something that's happening with our football team is these young football players are basically, I don't know what the term would be, but basically distance themselves from the head coach because they feel like, well, he looks at me like a little kid and I want to be treated like a young man. And so I think that's kind of like some trust that's getting misconstrued.
Sure.
So where they're not playing for the head coach because they feel like they're babies. And that's why something that I've tried strongly is calling them young men, treating them, telling them the truth. I'm not going to lie to them. And so that's one thing that I feel like is getting misconstrued and everything.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly frustrating. So you mentioned your relationship with your students. So tell me a little bit more about that. How is the way you've treated them different from other coaches on the team?
So one of the things that I like to do with my receivers per se is I like to treat them like they're young men, but I'm going to tell them the honest truth. Like, I'm all about having fun, but when it comes down to practice and basically getting on that field, we are going to be 100% serious.
Sure.
And I think they understand that, because since day one, since I got here, that's how I've told them. They also understand that I'm trying to help them later on in life. I can treat them differently if I wanted to, talent-wise, but I'm not going to do that. Whether you are the most talented or the least talented, I'm going to treat you the same, and I'd rather you become a better man, because that'll eventually make you a better player than all I care about is you being better, and that's it. So they understand that. One thing that I've seen that I've done that other coaches may have not done is basically trying to get to know them on a different level. I can talk to any of my receivers and know something about them that no one else on the team would know about. And I think that's just because, like, I'm trying to get to know them. Because me personally, they're not going to play for you if they don't trust you.
Right.
So that's one thing I try to do, is get to know them off the field, but also on the field as well.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What a cool just philosophy. And where does that come from? Where does that philosophy come from?
So it kind of comes from my last school. There's a coach who I really looked up to. He's now at Arizona University, and he always told me, if you get to know your players off the field, they will become better men, but also better players. And so that's always stuck with me, because I would rather have a better man playing than a better player, because with all that, with like my philosophy and his philosophy, is the better man you are, you will become a better player. Because football's not going to last for long for everyone. It's off the field that really makes you the person. So I got all that from the guy that I was under last year.
Yeah, that sounds like a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
So circling back a little bit to our earlier conversation about the facilities. You mentioned that they're, using or not using coat hangers at the bottom of Ambrose Hall, and the jerseys are kind of outdated. Is it a lack of funding, resources? What do you think that might be?
See, I think it's a little bit of both. I think we could make something here look really cool. But the fact is I don't know, because I'm not with the whole money situation,
Sure.
But I truly believe that if Ambrose wanted it to be a good facility, they'd make it happen. I feel like they're not necessarily behind the sports teams as much as they say they are. I know they're more into enrollment, but then they're not going to help out the sports teams.
Sure.
So I don't know the whole money standpoint,
Yeah.
but I know, like, if we really wanted the facilities to be really nice, they would have made it happen. And instead, they were always taking the back seat. And we need more numbers. But that, don't tell anyone, Dan.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit why I think about the facilities.
Safe space here. You might not be, like you said, around the money situation to know for certain, but you've been around now for a full year, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask you to make an observation. Based off of what you've seen, where do you think the attention of the school or the money situation is going to? Where do you think the support is going?
Now, I think the support does go towards sports a little bit, mostly football, just because we probably bring in the most money, players, etc. But I really believe the backbone is enrollment.
Sure.
And so I know, like, being at a small school, you got to have enrollment. But like this year, they gave us bring in 50, well, we brought in 60. And then the head coach was saying, hey, they may come back and want more numbers. And it's like, well, you told us 50 at the beginning. We already got over, and now you want us to do over. So we're bringing in 75 guys. And what I've noticed with a team like that is, with those 75 guys, you're probably going to lose more numbers than if you brought in only like 35.
Yeah.
So I really think the school is behind more numbers than sports teams.
What a crazy adventure the life of football is. I'm more involved in sports, but
For sure.
But hey, thanks so much for
Thank you,
talking.
sir. Yes, sir.